Welcome to the Silph Scope Podcast. My name is Matt.
And my name is Debbie.
We are Pokemon fans, and we started this podcast to talk about theories and tell stories about, our favorite legendary and unique Pokemon.
Yep, and we are based on a little item called the Silph Scope, which first appeared in red, blue, yellow, and green, I assume, which I have never played because I don't speak Japanese. And the Silph Scope is an item that allows the wearer to see ghosts, and we thought this was kind of cool because we hope to reveal myths and legends and maybe some theories and interesting facts.
Yes, facts.
To you.
Facts. Yeah, to introduce facts about these particular Pokemon. And so today, our very first episode, the episode you're currently listening to, we are covering what was used for the first Silph Scope, and that was the Ghost of Marowak. So we're going to talk about the theories of Cubone. But before we get into the theories, before we go all, put our tinfoil hats on, I'm going to read you a story about Cubone so that we all know what this Pokemon is.
Yeah.
All right.
And one of the reasons we chose Cubone, by the way, though, is that this is one of the most popular theories about any Pokemon, and it is also an official theory. It's not just a fan theory. Well, at least the story of Cubone is an official Pokemon story.
Yes. All right. So without further ado, let's cue the epic story music. Red, the ambitious young trainer whose goal was to catch every Pokemon in Kanto, arrived in Lavender Town. Lavender Town is a small village that rests just beyond the rock tunnel in Kanto region. The defining feature of this lonely town is its expansive, multi-story graveyard called the Pokemon Tower that houses the bodies of beloved Pokemon, causing the town to be frequented by those with deceased but still loved Pokemon. Red then went to a Pokemon Center, a place that heals Pokemon, only to hear people talking about a mysterious specter that terrified the mourners in the Pokemon Tower. One of the people asked Red if he believed in ghosts, a question he promptly said no. In retort, the woman asked if he didn't believe in the white hand resting upon his shoulder. Turning quickly to look, he saw no hand, but when he turned back to the two conversers, they had disappeared.
I actually was completely terrified by this when I watched this episode. I remember watching it when I was quite young, and I think I had to sleep with my sister that night because I was quite scared of it.
Was this an episode with Ash? Or was this...
No, this was an
Origins episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
If I remember correctly.
Very good. I wasn't scared because I'm not a wimp.
Well, I was. And it's like, when I say that, quite young, it was about 2 years ago.
I was like, isn't Origins extremely new? Oh, wait,
yes. Yeah, it is.
I get you.
I just didn't want to seem like I'm a really scared person. So.
All right. Back to what Red is up to. He says, upon the advice of Nurse Joy, the nurse who works at every Pokemon Center, Red visited the Pokemon House, a center run by Mr. Fuji, who cared for and raised orphaned and abandoned Pokemon. The care he showed them is undeniable. Every Pokemon looks happy and relaxed, all except one.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. That one is the hero of our story. No, the one is the young Cubone. He was fumed in solitude. It was a stark contrast to the Pokemon who played joyously nearby. The story of this child, as explained to Red, was heartbreaking. Team Rocket were hunting for Pokemon, and so they could sell them for profit. And Cubone had caught the eye of these thugs, and they captured him in his net in order to further their devious plans. But while Cubone cried and writhed, and the form of a large and angry Pokemon attacked the pathetic grunts, causing them to lose their hold over the Cubone. That Pokemon was Marowak, Cubone's mother. Faced the grunts and it screamed her child to run. She put her own life in danger for the sake of her child. Cubone fled, though with pain and hesitation, leaving his mother to battle alone. The grunts were terrified but impressed by the mother's tenacity, and showing the evil they had in their hearts, they retrieved a stun baton, not a stutter baton, a stun baton, and clubbed the protective parent to death. Lost and broken-hearted, the grieving Cubone was found by Mr. Fuji and given a home, but the brutal deed was never forgotten.
So that part is all in a flashback in the episode, and it's only alluded to in the games. I assume that's because the games, when they were made, obviously with children in mind, they didn't want to have a big conversation about how a Pokemon was brutally murdered. But it's okay if it's in Origins.
Reading this, like, actually kind of made my heart, like, I actually have a little, like, tears, like, oh, I'm like,
it's actually really sad.
It's really sad because
not childish.
I mean, I don't have a child, but I would assume if they were in trouble, I would put my life for it. And so it's just such a relatable story, which we're gonna find a lot with these Pokemon Legends as we continue with this podcast. That there's so many relatable stories to like our lives as humans that are just it's too much. I cry like every time. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's continue on with the story.
All right. Team Rocket had established their base inside the Pokemon Tower. A cruel irony to the love between trainer and Pokemon that the tower represents. Mr. Fuji tried to confront them, but did not return, causing Red to offer to confront them himself. So the
irony, I'm just going to point out, was actually something that I completely missed when I played the game. But the whole tower, how it's made is so, and it's filled with all these people who are going there to mourn their dead Pokemon whom they still love. And this whole story is born out of a murder of a Pokemon that really loved its child. And I thought that was just a very, very clever irony that completely went over my head when I played it when I was, about 20 years ago now.
To be honest, I didn't know about that until just now. That's actually...
Well, I think very deeply about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I was, thinking about it after we wrote down the story in bed, and I was like... That's so cruel. How could they do that to me?
Yeah, that's really, that just makes Team Rocket that much more evil, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Red is going to the tower. He gets inside the tower, and there's rumors. The rumors of the restless ghosts were rife. So that means there was rumors about the restless ghosts. Uncertain of whether the troublemaker was simply a ghost Pokemon or a disgruntled soul, Red continued, only to collide with his rival Blue, who, terrified and disheveled, informed him of the ghost's presence. Red tried to engage in battle, but the moves of his Charmeleon missed the formless specter. Over and over again, Blue then gave Red the Silph Scope, which he had stolen from Team Rocket, to Red, who placed it upon his head. Suddenly, the misty form in front of him manifested into an image of a pained Marowak, who desperately prevented him from reaching Team Rocket. During this time, the Cubone became frenzied and panicked as it pushed against the door in Mr. Fuji's house. He's trying to desperately escape. It was finally released by the attendant and raced towards the Pokemon Tower in bitter anguish. It sprinted up the tower and past Red, only to crawl into the embrace of the ghost of Marowak. The brave mother gave her life for her child's safety. They held each other, weeping with both sadness and joy, before Marowak said a gentle goodbye to her heartbroken child and moved out of his arms to finally dissolve into an afterlife. The knowledge of her child's safety calmed her frenzied rage, and her form faded into nothingness, and her family haunting, and her final... What does it say? Her finally haunting...
Her final haunting. I just can't spell and said finally haunting. Her final haunting was the lingering look of melancholy and peace that were reflected in Cubone's tears.
Yes, that's what happened. Well...
It's too early in the morning to discuss these sad things.
No, it's not. Not for me.
No, it's never too early for Pokemon.
But no, that's a really cool story, and Red does get to, of course, get rid of Team Rocket in the tower, so that's a closure to Red's story as well. But the main thing we wanted to focus was the theory about Cubone, about this strange Pokemon. Cubone is number 104 in the Pokedex, and he's known as the Lonely Pokemon because its Pokedex entry is because it never removes its skull helmet. No one has ever seen this Pokemon's real face. And the reason we wanted to share this story is because the main thing is the skull helmet is supposedly its mother's skull. And so when his mother was beaten, the Cubone put on that skull, and that's what makes it a Cubone, is because it's wearing its dead mother's skull. So we
Which
kind of
is so morbid. Like, who was thinking that when they were sitting in their office? Like, hey, let's come up with some new Pokemon. Oh, I know. Why doesn't one wear the skull of its dead mother? That seems like a happy little story we could throw in. That guy has problems.
he I don't know, like, is there any animals that actually like wear the skull or wear like bones from?
I have no idea.
That's
Animals that
something
wear
we need
skulls?
to look up. Maybe that's something that could help us understand why they came up with this idea for Cubone. Because what's really interesting about Pokemon is when they create a Pokemon, they always try to make it realistic in a certain way, and
Yeah.
they even add like weird attributes from like other Pokemon. Like there's the new one that just came out in Pokemon Sun and Moon, Piku Baku Pukumuku
Pukumuku.
Pukumuku, where it like
And
spits out.
Mimikyu is the one that wears the disguise, and Pukumuku is the one that spits up its guts.
Spits its guts, and there's
Yeah.
animals that actually spit up its guts, and that's kind of
Yeah,
what inspired
there
that
are.
one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a real animal that wears skulls, but a lot of mythology has creatures, usually creatures associated with death, that wear skulls of, deer and different things like that. And
That could be
even
the
a lot of
inspiration.
time, death, the one with the big scythe, is supposed to be a skeleton sometimes. So
Maybe that's where they got it from, because Cubone was faced with death and then decided to wear its helmet in memory of its mother. So that's kind of a
yes,
thing.
exactly.
So we wanted to talk about the theory of like, what if it's a Pokemon that puts on this skull and then it turns into a Cubone? What the heck is underneath the skull? What does Cubone look like? And there's like
Since
so
nobody's
many
ever
like
seen it.
fan theories. So what's the first one?
Yeah, so we do want to emphasize actually that these are fan theories. The story of Cubone and the Pokedex entries about it wearing its mother's skull, they're all legit, they're real, they're canon, but these theories about who it was before it put on the skull are purely fan theories.
Yeah. Well, it's because we're all human and we just want to know everything about
100%. I'm
Yeah.
totally curious. Well,
Yeah.
the first one, the most popular one, and is one of the most popular fan theories in Pokemon going around at all, is the theory that a Cubone is a baby Kangaskhan.
Yes.
I don't know even who first proposed this because it's been around for such a long time and is so popular. So I'm sorry to whoever came up with this theory in the first place, but I don't know who you are.
Yeah,
So-
this has been a theory like since the games first came out. Like I remember being
Yeah,
a kid
exactly.
thinking this was Cubone, and like at like 7, 8, thinking that this was Cubone was Kangaskhan.
Yeah, well, I remember hearing it. I just assumed that it was actually a real part of the story
Yeah.
because I had heard it ever since I started playing. Anyway, this one is about Kangaskhan. So Kangaskhan doesn't evolve. No idea why they haven't made a baby Kangaskhan Pokemon yet, but they haven't.
Yes.
And it carries a little baby Kangaskhan around in its pouch like a kangaroo because it's based on a kangaroo. And the baby Kangaskhan and the Cubone share similar physical traits, such as the shape of its nose and its tail, and a little bit about its colouring. So, like the big Kangaskhan, Mama Kangaskhan, is brown, and a baby Cubone, or a normal Cubone, I don't know if they're babies or adults, a Cubone is also brown. They're kind of based on they look a bit dinosaur-y like, not
Yeah.
dinosaur-y, but megafauna-y, I don't know.
Reptilian
Anyway.
of some sort, scaly.
Yeah, reptilian.
Yeah.
I always assume they were mammals. I don't know why. Anyway. But they have similarities in their look. That led to the suggestion that Cubone was actually a baby Kangaskhan whose mother Kangaskhan died. And when its mother died, it wore the skull of its mother and evolved or metamorphosized or whatever into a Cubone. This type of evolution would be a bit similar to when Pokemon hold certain items to evolve, such as a Slowpoke when it holds a King's Rock and it puts it on its head,
or
a
even-
Shelder on its tail.
Yeah, or even Shelder clamps on its tail, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't even change its physiology when a Shelder much. It doesn't change its physiology much when a Shelder clamps onto its tail. The Slowpoke just stands up, and it's the Shelder that changes shape, becomes
Yeah.
more of a tube-like thing. Thinking about that though, I just realised right now that if this is true and the Cubone is wearing the skull of its dead mother, it will have to wait around until the mother decomposes to get its skull.
That's really...
I don't know why, but I kind of thought it dies and then it takes its skull immediately, but no, it has to wait till it's actually a skull.
Yeah, that's kind of more morbid, and I would have to know that that's its mother's skull, too.
Yeah, so maybe it hangs around while its mother decomposes.
Or maybe, let's get really creepy here, guys, maybe it eats the skin until it finds the skull.
Hey, which happens with animals all the time.
There you go.
Animal cannibalism is so common, so
yeah.
Because I'm morbid, I want to go for that theory instead of just that it, waits around finding after its dead mother.
Yes.
They're both pretty sad.
They're both pretty gross, yeah. So
yeah.
Something I wanted to kind of say is I looked up the Pokedex entries for Kangaskhan real fast, and so we're gonna see if there's like a comparison with like if there's anything that gives us a hint here. So the very first one from Red and Blue is the infant rarely ventures out of its mother's protective pouch until it is 3 years old. So that means the Cubone would have to be, or if it is the Cubone theory, it'd have to be like at least 3 years old when its mom dies.
Well, not necessarily, because if its mum dies, it can't stay in its pouch anymore.
That's true. And also the yellow one, it says it raises its youth in a belly pouch and won't run away from any fight to keep its young protected. So
that does sound very Marowak-like.
Yeah.
It sounds like a mother who died saving its child.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that would lead to its death. Like, if a Team Rocket Grunt does come, then go for it. It would just go there to fight him to the death, to protect its child.
And we've seen a few episodes, I think, where Kangaskhan have been quite aggressive in protecting their babies before. Except they're, like, ginormous and a massive tank and can take almost anyone anyway.
Yeah.
But another thing also that is connecting this theory, or these two Pokemon, is they're both influenced by Australia, because kangaroos are obviously Australian, everybody knows that. But a Cubone, it has the move Boomerang, is that
Boomerang,
what it's called? Yeah, and that's based on boomerangs. And
which
boomerangs are also Australian. And
crikey, I never made that comparison.
Crikey, indeed, because we say that in Australia, crikey. 100% we say that.
Yeah.
We don't.
What?
But anyway.
I thought that was real, to be honest. Well,
yeah,
like Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin said it, but nobody else says it. Anyway, so they're both influenced by Australian life. Well, boomerangs aren't animals, obviously, but it does make it a little bit like, well, were they thinking of these two Pokemon together when they created them, if they're both based on Australian things and have kind of similar physiologies?
I don't know, but what's interesting is when the baby puts on the skull, it would turn into a Cubone, and then it would have to level up or live a little bit longer with that skull on, and then evolve into a Marowak.
Yeah.
So that's kind
unless it gets traded, but I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
So that means, like, have you ever heard of? I know there's this thing where you can stunt like the growth of like a dog's tail if you like put a rubber band on it. This is cruel, I know. Like, they put rubber bands on a tail and the tail like gets short.
Yeah.
And it doesn't grow any further.
Well, they do that with sheep as well, because otherwise they poo on their tails.
Yeah, and so like would that kind of be like, because a Marowak is significantly smaller than a Kangaskhan when it evolves or when it's full grown. And so like
is this completely morbid today?
Well, if the skull is like on its head and it's trying to grow, maybe it stunts its growth from like.
But then,
you know what I'm saying?
The skull, yeah, I get what you mean.
The skull will stunt its growth.
It depends, because the skull of the Kangaskhan should, in theory, be as big as a Kangaskhan. But then I guess it's inside the skull, and the inside of the skull is not as big as the outside of the skull. I
don't know. I just thought of that. I don't know if that's a legit thing. I'm just adding
creepy, but it kind of, yeah. Okay, well, anyway, there are obviously some things that don't fit into this theory.
Yes.
Or things that might say that this theory isn't as real as we hope it might be, because it's a really sad theory. But especially since Kangaskhan can now Mega Evolve, and we can actually see the baby Kangaskhan and what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's purple. It's purpley blue. Cubone is brown.
Yes.
There are a few other physiology things that are different. Like if you look at its Pokedex entry, their footprints are different.
Uh-huh.
Are their footprints different? I'm just going to check that. Can't remember if their footprints are different or if they're... Yeah, they do. They have different footprints. Also, Marowak doesn't have a pouch.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a bit weird. And I guess the really, really big one that disproves this theory is that we actually saw in Pokemon Origins that it was a Marowak that died, not a Kangaskhan.
Yeah, according to the show, yes, of course.
According to the show.
Now, this is a theory that started before it happened, but it goes with our podcast. We just want to get it out there. We wanted this.
I mean, it may have been the origin of Cubones. Like there was this one Cubone or a couple of Cubones that had this experience happen, and then they bred together and made Cubones, and it was like a genetic change. Even though that doesn't make any sense with genetics.
But in Origins, we never saw Cubone grab the skull of its mother though to wear it.
It was already wearing a skull.
It was already wearing a skull in Origins. So that means
so
the
unless
Pokedex
its other mom
entries,
died.
That leads to another thing, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So we have one more theory, and then we'll talk about why.
Oh, I have another one of Kangaskhan that I just thought of.
Okay.
Kangaskhan are all women. They're all females. But you can get male and female Marowaks.
Wait, you can only get female Kangaskhan's?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
They're completely female.
All right. Cool.
Anyway, we do have another theory, yes.
One more theory. All right. So similar to the theory is to the Kangaskhan is that Cubone is actually originally a Charmander who took the skull of its dead Charizard's mother. And the reason that this is a theory is it's due to the physical likeness of the skull being similar to a Charizard than a Kangaskhan. So the skull looks more like Charizard's skull. And that's where this theory came from. The explanation of the ground typing of Cubone is because Charmander was so devastated when its mom died, its flame was lost, and so will never be able to evolve into a flying type. So that's why it turned into a ground type. So it doesn't die, it just turns to a Cubone. So that's the whole thing about when Charmander's flame goes out. So when in Pokemon, the first season, when Charmander's dying and the rain's getting its tail on fire, and Ash is like, I'm going to save it. Like, he was just going through some weird metamorphosis state to become a Cubone. All right? He wasn't going to die, guys. Let's get real. And,
Pokemon never die or get murdered, so...
Yeah, never.
Clearly it wasn't going to happen.
Unless it's Pokemon Origins.
Yeah.
And then, this is also an explanation of why Cubone can learn the move Flamethrower, because it... it used to be a Charmander. And also it would explain Marowak's new Alolan form, where it now is a Ghost Fire type. So that's why this theory has sprung up, because it seems to fit more likely, because the skull is similar. They get those fire
this
moves.
theory was around before Sun and Moon, and so the Ghost Fire thing was kind of icing on the cake.
I know deep down inside it's Game Freak just being like, yeah, you got it right, guys. Just giving us new form, right?
I loved that they alluded to the whole series by putting it as a ghost. I really thought that was very, very clever. And it was, when I first saw the Alolan form, I thought it was going to be ground fire because it obviously was holding the fire things. And then I saw it was ghost and I was like, wow, like they know.
It died, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the whole game really has a lot of allusions to popular culture, and this was just an amazing example of using popular culture about Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about this theory? Does this one seem more likely to you than the Kangaskhan one?
Well, the skull does look a lot more like a Charizard because it has the spikes. It has the pokies on the horns.
Yeah, the Pokemons. Oh, the
the horns. Yeah. I'm good with English. In terms of learning Flamethrower, that is a bit of a it's very far-fetched. Because it can also learn Ice Beam.
That's true.
And that's got nothing to do with Charmander. But
can Charizard can't learn Ice Beam?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I've never tried. I never thought of it.
I don't think so. But it can.
I have to look it up.
I mean Marowak can. So I think that if it was originally a Charmander that became a Cubone. That's really sad with the whole, oh, I'll never fly, so now I'm just a ground Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
That's really sad. But I don't know if it's sadder than... I like the sad ones, so I don't know if it's sadder than the Kangaskhan one. I think the Kangaskhan one might... I don't know. Neither of them really make complete sense. But it's Pokemon, so...
I don't know, like, reading this Charmander one made more sense to me because, like, the flame goes out, we all assume Charmander will die, but instead it turns to a Cubone, but it's also devastated because its mom, Charizard, died, and it could be both male and female, and it loses its flying ability because its flame went out, but it keeps its fire ability when it's now New Alolan Marowak, but...
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
I mean, that one makes more sense.
And I guess a Marowak is more like a Charmeleon than a grown-up Kangaskhan as well. And so that's it. If it can't evolve flight, so it's stuck as a Charmeleon / Marowak.
Yeah, so it only has a second evolve form, which is Charmeleon status right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that.
And it's also interesting because Marowak and Cubone, they're the only evolution where the older or the second evolution has no type that's the same as the first or the previous evolution.
With the new Alolan form, right?
Yeah, with the new Alolan form. So that's even a bit more like, whoa, like, well, it already changed from fire to ground. But then why would it change from fire to ground and then go back to fire?
Because it died, and, like, if you want to get into, like, the spirit world, Debbie, the spirits, you know, you get back your, like, old attributes, you know, right? Am I right?
I've never been to the spirit world, so
I don't know, neither have I, but I'm just going under the assumption.
So does that mean, though, that every Cubone who lives in Alola dies before it becomes, like, it dies to become a Marowak?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole thing with ghosts.
Yeah,
ghosts
they hit level, like, I think
they
evolve at, like, level 36, and they have, like, a little poison thing they stash in their, like, skull, and they just drink it real fast, and they die, and that's how they evolve. And the trainer doesn't notice because they just think it's evolving.
What is wrong with you?
They're just doing, like, mass suicide in the game.
But they like to dance, so they don't seem to mind. Like, they're happy.
There you go, yeah.
Anyway, I guess one of the big things...
I'm sorry if I got too bad. I was just
just trying to make it, you know, keep it positive because we're talking about
I've been playing
stuff.
I've been playing another
one of the
game.
big things, I suppose, is that the Pokedex entry specifically alludes to the... Well, I mean, it's not an illusion. It specifically states that it wears the skull of its mother.
Yes.
And how much do you trust the Pokedex?
I don't know. See, that's the thing that I want to talk about is, like, a theory of the Pokedex is what is the Pokedex? Where are they getting their information from? Because that's a whole nother topic for maybe a whole nother episode. But, like, it could
I
just be...
think we probably will do an episode on the Pokedex because there's so much you can say about it.
Yeah. Like,
Hint,
for instance...
a bunch of, like, silliness.
Yeah, for instance, this theory or these, like, things just could be tall tales or legends of...
Yeah, like how the elephant got its trunk.
Yeah.
How the Cubone got its skull.
Yeah, and so that could be what the Pokedex entry was about, was just the legend of this particular monster that, like, somebody in the past, like, made up to explain it. So.
Yeah, because otherwise every Cubone has to have a mother die.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can a Cubone take its skull from its father?
Maybe. If it's really close to its dad, if it's like a daddy's
Because, like,
boy.
one... Then it has two parents it could potentially get its skull from.
Yeah.
Either way, it's still... That means every Cubone has to have a dead parent, and that doesn't seem very sustainable for the species.
And
because you can only have one baby and then you die.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, that's not the only reason that these things are not, like, the best theories. Is, like, you already talked about no pouch. There's, yeah, I don't know. There's too much opposition. Like you said, like, it wouldn't make sense either because the skull, if it's a ghost Pokemon, if we want to go off of the things that ghosts aren't really tangible and you can't really touch them, then, like, ghost Pokemon would be, like, invisible and wouldn't have a skull really, right? Or could they have a skull to make it levitate?
It took the skull before it became a ghost.
Yeah.
Well, not in Alola.
I don't know.
Unless their body dies and then their spirit turns into the ghost/fire Pokemon.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand. Now we have to do a theory about ghost Pokemon. This podcast is going to go forever, guys.
Yeah, well, it is a weird thing. They will have to get a skull from everywhere, and that doesn't make sense. I mean, the other thing is that it was just a single Cubone in the first place, or a couple of Cubones, that this happened to, especially since it talks about how Kangaskhan get hunted quite readily. And just for your information, kangaroo meat is delicious, so I'm afraid that I can actually understand this. Don't hunt to extinction, that's very bad. Anyway, so once the Kangaskhan started to get hunted quite a lot, there would have been a lot of baby Kangaskhan that had lost mothers, and from that group, they got lots of skulls and evolved into Cubones, and then after that it was a genetic thing, and then all Cubones and all Marowaks had baby Cubones.
That would be the case because you can in the Pokemon daycare breed a Marowak to have a Cubone baby. So, or like it only stays in that line. You can't like breed a Charizard and all of a sudden you have a Cubone because the flame wasn't lit on Charmander. So
Exactly.
So that's another reason why these theories are just theories and not like the real deal. But
yeah, I mean, Pokemon is weird, so it could just be that it was a genetic change, even though that doesn't make sense. And so it made a new species. But Cubone is definitely a distinct species. It's a new species. It's not the same species as a Charmander or a baby Kangaskhan. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be that every single Cubone lost a mother.
Exactly. And so what do you guys think? Is there theories that we don't know about? I mean, we would love to hear emails from you guys. You can email us. We have an email, which is really cool, called silphscopepodcast@gmail.com. You can email us there any theories that you have. And which one do you think is the most likely? Like, Debbie, which one do you think is more close?
I still think they're old wives' tales.
Do you just think they're old wives' tales?
It didn't actually...
Which one would you want to be more plausible?
I think the Charizard one.
Yeah, I think that's the more realistic one if we were to choose one out of the two.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just not going to happen. It's just a theory.
No, it's just a theory. It's... Don't say that in science, by the way, because a theory is something that has a lot of evidence for it. But either way, it is still a fan theory made up by fans. It's not an official theory, so we don't know.
What's a more like in science you said theories are like yes. What's like a...
Well, we're not talking about scientific theories, so it's okay.
What if we say like it's a hypothesis? Is that a thing?
Okay, it's a hypothesis. Yes. Which hypothesis do you like better?
Is that better? Is that a better word?
It is, but I'm not going to get all science on you and...
All right, sorry.
We have to do it this way because otherwise we'd totally get into the genetics and then it would just be all like, well, Pokemon doesn't make sense, it's not real. And then I'll just go and cry because I already know that, but it's still heartbreaking. Anyway, so tell us which theory / hypothesis you agree with, if you agree with any of them, or if you have any other origin stories of Cubone and where Cubone came from. We'd love to hear them.
Of course. And Debbie, is there a place that they can follow you or look you up at all? No? All right, cool. No. You should probably make a Twitter account next week.
Actually, we'll probably use this for the basis of future episodes, but I do have a WordPress account called Dubious Caesar where I talk about Pokemon and use Pokemon to link them to science and different facts about science. And there is one that is based on Kangaskhan and why Kangaskhan are only female. So if you're interested in finding examples of real life animals that are exclusively female and how they relate to Kangaskhan, look it up on WordPress, and that's Dubious Caesar.
Awesome. So you can find her there at Dubious Caesar at WordPress, and then you can find me WordPress. And you can find me on the Twitter at Nuzlocke Maddie. Yes, very Pokemon related. So that was our very first episode, and before we go, guess who's this Pokemon?